Federal recognition is more than just a bureaucratic process.
It is a
battle for identity, sovereignty, and justice.
for Native
For Native
American
American tribes, this recognition is not merely symbolic. It determines their ability to govern themselves, access federal resources, and reclaim rights that have been systematically eroded over centuries. The road to recognition is arduous, fraught with legal, historical, and political challenges. It demands that tribes provide extensive documentation proving their existence as a continuous political and social entity. However, for many tribes, the struggle for federal recognition is not just about meeting government-imposed criteria. It is about preserving their heritage and ensuring their survival for future generations. To understand the significance of federal recognition, one must first acknowledge the long history of Native American tribes in the United States. Long before European settlers arrived, Indigenous peoples governed themselves through complex social, political, and economic systems. They had their own languages, customs, and territories, however. With colonization came the systematic dispossession of native lands, forced assimilation, and violent displacement. Treaties were made and broken, reservations were created and reduced, and tribal identities were often erased or merged at the convenience of the U.S. government. By the 20th century, many tribes had lost official recognition due to policies like the Indian Termination Act of the 1950s, which sought to assimilate Native Americans into mainstream American society by dissolving tribal governments. This erasure had devastating consequences, cutting off tribes from essential federal services and severing their legal status as sovereign entities. In response, tribes began advocating for the restoration of their recognition, leading to the establishment of the Federal Acknowledgement Process through the Bureau of Indian Affairs. The Federal Acknowledgement Process, as established by the BIA, sets forth rigorous criteria that tribes must meet to gain recognition. These criteria include demonstrating historical continuity, maintaining political influence or authority, having a distinct membership, providing a governing document, and not being previously terminated. While these requirements may seem reasonable in theory, in practice they pose significant challenges. Many tribes were forcibly relocated, and their records were lost or destroyed. Others have had to rely on oral traditions, which are often not given the same weight as written documentation. The process can take decades, draining financial and emotional resources from tribal communities that are already struggling with economic and social disparities. For many Native communities, the fight for recognition is deeply personal. It is about proving to the U.S. government that they exist, despite centuries of policies designed to erase them. The process is not just legal but emotional, as it forces tribes to relive historical traumas and defend their identities in front of bureaucratic panels that may have little understanding of native cultures. Tribal leaders often speak of the pain of having their existence questioned. Many elders who have spent their lives preserving traditions and fighting for recognition pass away before seeing their tribes acknowledged. Families are torn apart by the stress of the process, and communities struggle to fund the legal and historic research necessary to meet the BIA's demands. Despite these challenges, some tribes have successfully gained federal recognition, leading to transformative changes for their communities. Recognition grants access to essential services, including healthcare, education, and housing programs. It also allows tribes to reclaim their lands, protect their sacred sites, and revitalize their languages and cultural traditions. For instance, the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, the very people who welcomed the Pilgrims in the 1600s, fought for over 3 decades before gaining federal recognition in 2007. Their struggle highlights the irony of a system that forced the descendants of the first Native Americans to interact with European settlers to prove their existence to the very government that took their lands. However, the fight is far from over. Many tribes remain unrecognized, either because they have not met the stringent criteria or because political forces have stalled their applications. Some states recognize tribes that the federal government does not, creating disparities in access to resources and legal protections additionally. Even after recognition, tribes must continually defend their sovereignty against legal and political challenges. As the movement for Native American rights gains momentum, there are calls to reform the recognition process to make it more just and accessible. Advocates argue that the burden of proof should not fall so heavily on tribes that have already suffered centuries. For centuries, Native American tribes have fought for their rights, their lands, and their cultures. From the first interactions with European settlers to the modern legal battles for recognition, the concept of tribal sovereignty has remained a central pillar in the identity and governance of indigenous nations. Tribal sovereignty is more than just a legal status. It is a testament to the resilience, strength, and cultural pride of native peoples. It encompasses self-governance, the ability to enforce laws, make treaties, and preserve traditions that have been passed down for generations. The recognition of Native American tribes by the U.S. government grants them a unique legal status. Recognized tribes operate as distinct political entities akin to sovereign nations, with powers of self-governance. This means they can create and enforce their own laws, regulate businesses within their territories, and protect their cultural heritage without undue interference. The legal framework for tribal sovereignty stems from multiple Supreme Court decisions and legislative acts. One of the most significant rulings came from the landmark case Worcester v. Georgia, 1832, which affirmed that states had no authority over Native American lands. This ruling laid the foundation for the concept that tribes are domestic dependent nations possessing inherent powers that predate the formation of the United States. Subsequent legislation, such as the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934, further strengthened tribal governance by encouraging self-determination and reducing federal oversight. The passage of the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act of 1975 marked another crucial milestone, allowing tribes to contract with federal agencies to administer programs for their people. With sovereignty comes the right to govern and protect one's community. Tribal governments have the authority to enact and enforce laws, maintain court systems, and establish their own law enforcement agencies. This autonomy allows tribes to address issues that impact their communities directly, without waiting for state or federal intervention. For example, the Navajo Nation, one of the largest federally recognized tribes, has its own criminal and civil court systems that operate independently of state jurisdictions. The Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma has an advanced legal system that manages everything from child welfare to business regulations. However, challenges remain. Tribal law enforcement agencies often struggle with underfunding and jurisdictional complexities. In cases where non-native individuals commit crimes on tribal lands, legal loopholes sometimes prevent tribal courts from prosecuting offenders effectively. The Violence Against Women Act reauthorization of 2013 sought to address this by expanding tribal jurisdiction over non-native perpetrators of domestic violence. Yet, more work is needed to ensure comprehensive justice for all indigenous communities. One of the most crucial aspects of tribal sovereignty is the ability to preserve culture, language, and traditions for centuries. For centuries, indigenous customs were threatened by forced assimilation policies, including the infamous boarding school system, where native children were taken from their families and stripped of their cultural identities. Today, many tribes have launched successful initiatives to revive endangered languages, promote traditional arts, and pass down sacred knowledge. The Ho-Chunk Nation, for instance, has invested in immersive language programs to ensure that younger generations can speak their ancestral tongue fluently. The Pueblo tribes of New Mexico maintain their centuries-old agricultural and ceremonial practices, resisting pressures to conform to external influences. Federal recognition allows tribes to secure funding for cultural preservation projects, ensuring that future generations will have access to the wisdom and traditions of their ancestors. Museums, educational programs, and heritage sites operated by tribes play a significant role in combating cultural erasure and educating the broader public about indigenous histories and contributions. Recognition and sovereignty provide tribes with economic opportunities that would otherwise be unavailable. Many tribes operate businesses ranging from tourism to technology, leveraging their sovereign status to build self-sustaining economies. One of the most visible examples is the success of tribal gaming enterprises. Under the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act of 1988, federally recognized tribes were granted the ability to operate casinos on their lands, generating billions of dollars in revenue annually. Tribes like the Mashantucket Pequot and the Mohegan Tribe in Connecticut have built world-renowned gaming resorts, using the profits to fund healthcare, education, and infrastructure improvements for their communities. Beyond gaming, many tribes have diversified their economies. The Tulalip tribes in Washington have invested in retail, real estate, and entertainment ventures, creating jobs and sustainable income. The Chickasaw Nation has pioneered businesses in banking, telecommunications, and manufacturing, demonstrating the vast potential of economic self-determination. Federal recognition also provides access to grants, healthcare programs like the Indian Health Service, and funding for housing and education. These resources are essential in addressing socioeconomic disparities that have historically plagued indigenous communities. Despite the benefits of recognition, many tribes remain unrecognized by the federal government, leaving them without the legal protections and financial support that acknowledged tribes receive. The recognition process is notoriously complex, requiring extensive documentation of continuous existence, historical records, and evidence of governance. Many tribes, such as the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina, continue to fight for federal acknowledgement, facing bureaucratic hurdles and political opposition. Moreover, even recognized tribes face persistent challenges. Environmental threats such as climate change and resource exploitation, endangered tribal lands, the fight to protect sacred sites, water rights, and ancestral homelands remains an ongoing battle. As indigenous voices grow stronger in politics, law, and advocacy, the future of tribal sovereignty looks promising. More native leaders are being elected to public office, ensuring that indigenous perspectives are represented in decision-making processes. The appointment of Deb Haaland, a member of the Laguna Pueblo, as the U.S. Secretary of the Interior, marked a historic moment for indigenous representation in government. Tribes are also leveraging technology and modern governance strategies to strengthen their communities. Digital sovereignty, data protection, and economic innovation are becoming focal points for many indigenous nations as they navigate the complexities of the modern world while maintaining their cultural integrity. Tribal sovereignty is not just a legal principle. It is a lifeline for Native American communities. It empowers tribes to govern themselves, protect their people, and preserve their heritage in a rapidly changing world. The recognition of tribal sovereignty is a recognition of history, resilience, and the right of indigenous peoples to determine their own destinies. As the fight for justice, recognition, and equality continues, one thing remains certain. The spirit of tribal nations is unbreakable. Their sovereignty is more than a status. It is a testament to their endurance, their wisdom, and their unwavering commitment to future generations. For centuries, Native American tribes have fought for recognition, sovereignty, and access to resources that rightfully belong to them. The United States government has, over time, developed a system through which certain tribes are granted federal recognition, affording them a level of legal and political stand that allows for critical support in areas like education, healthcare, housing, and infrastructure. Programs such as the Indian Health Service, IHS, and the Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIA, provide crucial funding to these recognized tribes. Yet the process of obtaining federal acknowledgement remains riddled with bureaucratic obstacles and historical injustices. While recognition provides opportunities for economic development, including casino operations under the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, the road to achieving it is often long, complex, and deeply emotional. Federal recognition is more than just a bureaucratic classification. It is an affirmation of a tribe's inherent sovereignty, cultural heritage, and legal standing. Recognized tribes can govern themselves, enforce laws within their communities, and apply for federal grants and assistance programs. More importantly, recognition is an acknowledgement of historical injustices inflicted upon indigenous peoples, validating their struggle to maintain their identity, land, and traditions in the face of centuries of colonization. However, not all tribes are fortunate enough to receive this status. The recognition process, controlled by the Office of Federal Acknowledgement, OFA, within the Department of the Interior, is notoriously difficult. Tribes must meet strict criteria that require them to demonstrate continuous existence as a distinct community since historical times. This documentation often requires extensive genealogical and anthropological evidence, which many tribes struggle to provide due to the forced removals and cultural erasures of the past. One of the most tangible benefits of federal recognition is access to essential services and funding. Healthcare is a critical concern in many indigenous communities, where access to hospitals and medical professionals is often limited. The Indian Health Service, IHS, provides medical care to federally recognized tribes, helping to address issues such as diabetes, heart disease, and mental health concerns that disproportionately affect native populations. While the IHS is underfunded and often criticized for its inefficiencies, it remains a lifeline for many tribal members. Education is another crucial area where recognition makes a difference. Federally recognized tribes receive funding for schools, scholarships, and cultural preservation programs that help pass down language and traditions to future generations. Many Native students benefit from financial assistance for college, allowing them to pursue higher education without the financial burdens that often accompany it. Housing and infrastructure improvements are also significant advantages of recognition. Many Native communities suffer from substandard housing conditions, lacking clean water, electricity, and safe roads. Through federal funding, tribes can develop housing projects, improve sanitation facilities, and build roads, fostering economic growth and improving the quality of life for tribal members. Beyond federal funding, recognition provides tribes with economic opportunities, most notably through casino operations. The Indian Gaming Regulatory Act of 1988 allows federally recognized tribes to operate gaming establishments, generating billions of dollars annually. While not all tribes benefit equally from gaming revenues, successful casino operations have enabled many tribes to invest in community development, job creation, and cultural preservation. However, relying on casinos as a primary economic driver presents challenges. Not every tribe is situated in a location suitable for attracting customers, and competition among tribal and non-tribal gaming establishments can be fierce. Additionally, some critics argue that casino wealth does not always trickle down to every tribal member, leading to disparities within communities. Despite these challenges, gaming remains a powerful tool for tribal economic development and self-sufficiency. While the benefits of federal recognition are clear, the path to achieving it is fraught with obstacles. The Bureau of Indian Affairs (BIA) sets stringent criteria for recognition, requiring tribes to provide detailed historical documentation proving their continuous existence as a political and social entity. This requirement is especially difficult for tribes that have suffered from forced relocation, assimilation policies, and record destruction at the hands of government agencies. For some tribes, the recognition process can take decades, requiring extensive legal battles and significant financial resources. Many tribes have had to hire anthropologists, historians, and lawyers to compile evidence, draining their limited funds. Even with strong historical claims, recognition is not guaranteed. Some tribes, such as the Lumbee in North Carolina, have struggled for recognition despite their deep historical roots, facing political roadblocks and opposition from other tribes that fear losing federal resources. The fight for recognition is not just a legal battle. It is deeply personal. Tribal members who dedicate their lives to securing recognition for their people often face emotional and psychological stress. The process can feel like an extension of historical injustices, as Indigenous communities once again find themselves needing to prove their legitimacy to a government that has long sought to erase them. For many, the denial of recognition is more than a bureaucratic decision. It is a denial of identity. Tribes that are rejected often feel abandoned, as though their culture and heritage are not valued. The emotional toll extends beyond the present, affecting future generations who may grow up without the same opportunities and protections that federal recognition provides. Given the difficulties faced by many tribes, there is a growing call for reforming the federal recognition process. Advocates argue that the burden of proof should be lessened, considering the historical trauma and forced assimilation that have disrupted tribal records. Additionally, the process should be more transparent and efficient, reducing the financial and emotional strain on tribes seeking acknowledgement. Some propose that Congress should take a more active role in recognizing tribes, bypassing the often controversial OFA process. Others suggest that states should have more influence in determining recognition, as many state-recognized tribes continue to struggle without federal support. While reform efforts have been slow-moving, there is hope that increased awareness and advocacy will lead to meaningful change. Federal recognition is a double-edged sword. While it provides access to essential resources and opportunities, the process to obtain it remains deeply flawed. For many tribes, recognition is not just about economic benefits. It is about preserving identity, culture, and sovereignty. The struggle for acknowledgement is a testament to the resilience of Native American communities who continue to fight for their rightful place in a system that has long sought to marginalize them. As the U.S. government continues to wrestle with the complexities of tribal recognition, it is imperative to remember that at the heart of the issue are real people. Elders who carry the weight of history, youth who dream of a better future, and entire communities seeking justice. The path forward must be one of fairness, respect, and acknowledgement of the historical injustices that have shaped the present. Only through meaningful reform and genuine commitment to Indigenous rights can the federal recognition process truly serve the tribes it is meant to support. For centuries, Native American tribes have fought for their survival, their lands, and their identity. Yet in modern times, many tribes find themselves locked in an invisible battle, not for territory, but for recognition. While some tribes have secured federal acknowledgement, others remain in limbo, dismissed by bureaucratic red tape and a system that often seems designed to erase them. The process of tribal recognition is lengthy, expensive, and deeply frustrating, often stretching across decades and consuming vast resources. Without recognition, these tribes are denied not just legal status, but access to crucial resources, cultural protections, and the validation of their historical and contemporary existence. This essay delves into the painful reality of unrecognized tribes, their struggle for acknowledgement, and the profound political and social implications that follow. For a tribe to be federally recognized in the United States, it must navigate a complex and exhaustive process overseen by the Bureau of Indian Affairs (BIA). Established in 1978, the Federal Acknowledgement Process (FAP) requires tribes to provide an overwhelming amount of documentation proving continuous existence as a distinct community from historical times to the present. This means supplying detailed genealogical records, legal documents, historical accounts, and cultural evidence. An almost insurmountable task for tribes whose records may have been lost or destroyed due to forced relocation, assimilation policies, and systemic marginalization. The process is not only bureaucratically cumbersome, but also financially draining. Legal fees, anthropological research, and the sheer manpower needed to compile necessary documentation often cost tribes millions of dollars. An unattainable sum for many. Some tribes have spent over 40 years fighting for recognition, only to be met with rejection or indefinite delays. The irony is glaring. While the U.S. government demands exhaustive proof of tribal existence, it has historically been responsible for erasing much of that very proof through assimilation policies, boarding schools, and forced displacement. For unrecognized tribes, the consequences are devastating. Federal recognition grants tribes access to essential services, including healthcare, education, and housing through agencies like the Indian Health Service (IHS) and the Bureau of Indian Education (BIE). Without recognition, tribes are left to fend for themselves, often struggling with poverty, inadequate healthcare, and lack of educational opportunities. Moreover, recognition affords tribes legal sovereignty, allowing them to govern themselves, enact their own laws, and access land and environmental protections. Without this status, unrecognized tribes have no legal grounds to reclaim ancestral lands or protect sacred sites from development and desecration. They also cannot establish casinos or enterprises that many recognized tribes rely on for economic sustainability. Perhaps the most painful loss is cultural validation. Recognition is not just a legal matter. It is an acknowledgement of a tribe's history, identity, and right to exist. Many unrecognized tribes feel the sting of exclusion, forced to defend their heritage and legitimacy against outsiders who dismiss their claims for indigenous people whose ancestors fought to preserve their culture against colonization and systemic oppression. Being told that their tribe does not exist is a profound and deeply personal wound. Tribal recognition is not merely a bureaucratic hurdle, it is a political battlefield. The process is often influenced by lobbying efforts, economic interests, and historical biases. Some states and federal agencies resist recognizing tribes due to financial concerns, fearing that new tribal governments will claim land, seek reparations, or require funding for social programs. Additionally, already recognized tribes sometimes oppose the recognition of new tribes, worried that it will dilute existing resources or challenge their territorial claims. This has created an unfortunate divide among Native American communities, where some groups, fearing economic losses, actively campaign against the recognition of others. There is also an underlying racial element to the recognition process. Some tribes, particularly those with members of mixed ancestry, face skepticism regarding their legitimacy. The controversial concept of blood quantum, a measure of Native American heritage based on percentage of indigenous blood, has been used to discredit tribes and individuals, ignoring the cultural and historical realities of indigenous identity. Many unrecognized tribes have members with indigenous lineage but lack official documentation, leading them to be dismissed as not Indian enough. Beyond politics, the lack of recognition has severe social consequences. Indigenous languages, traditions, and customs are often passed down through official tribal institutions without recognition. Many unrecognized tribes struggle to sustain their cultural heritage. Federal programs that support language revitalization, historical preservation, and indigenous education are largely unavailable to them, placing their traditions at risk of extinction. Furthermore, the psychological toll of non-recognition is profound. Many indigenous people grow up feeling disconnected from their heritage, uncertain about their identity due to the external invalidation of their tribal status. The struggle for recognition is often a struggle for self-worth, a fight to prove that one's existence, history, and culture matter. Despite these immense challenges, unrecognized tribes continue to fight for their rightful place in history. The Lumbee tribe of North Carolina, with over 55,000 members, has been seeking full federal recognition for decades. Despite being recognized by the state and having a strong cultural and historical presence, they have been denied federal acknowledgement due to political and economic disputes. Similarly, the Muwekma-Ohlone tribe of California has faced a prolonged battle for recognition, despite their undeniable ancestral ties to the San Francisco Bay Area. Denied recognition due to bureaucratic loopholes and shifting policies, they continue to advocate for their rights, refusing to let their history be erased. Other tribes have taken legal action, protested, and engaged in grassroots movements to demand recognition. In some cases, legal victories have been won, but in many others, the struggle continues with no end in sight. The current system for tribal recognition is deeply flawed. There is an urgent need for reform, including streamlining the process, reducing financial burdens, and acknowledging historical injustices that have made documentation difficult. Some proposed solutions include legislative changes. Congress could pass laws simplifying the recognition process and providing alternative methods of proof that account for historical displacement and erasure. State recognition pathways, while not equivalent to federal recognition, state acknowledgement can help provide some protections and resources. Greater awareness and advocacy, public pressure and media coverage can push the government to address injustices in the recognition process. Collaboration among tribes. Recognized and unrecognized tribes should work together rather than against each other to ensure that all indigenous communities receive acknowledgement and support they deserve. The struggle for tribal recognition is not just a legal issue. It is a matter of justice, dignity, and human rights. The failure to recognize these tribes perpetuates the historical injustices that indigenous communities have endured for centuries. Denying recognition is a continuation of the erasure that began with colonization, forced assimilation, and broken treaties. Every tribe that has preserved its traditions, upheld its cultural identity, and maintained its community despite systemic oppression deserves acknowledgement. Recognition is more than a government stamp. It is an affirmation of existence, a validation of history, and a pathway to justice. Until all tribes are recognized, the fight continues, and the voices of the unrecognized will not be silenced. Federal recognition has long been a pivotal issue for Native American tribes, serving as both a source of empowerment and a point of contention. While recognition strengthens tribal identity, affording tribes legal standing and political representation, it also fosters division. Some tribes receive recognition, securing access to vital resources and reaffirming their cultural heritage, while others remain unacknowledged, their history and identity relegated to the margins. This disparity breeds frustration, activism, and at times bitter conflict within indigenous communities. For many tribes, federal recognition is more than just an official title. It is a validation of their historical and cultural existence. Recognized tribes gain sovereignty over their lands, access to federal aid programs, and the ability to self-govern. This status enables them to build schools, improve healthcare, and sustain their cultural practices through federally funded initiatives. The government's acknowledgement also affirms their role in political discussions, allowing them to advocate for policies affecting indigenous rights, land sovereignty, and environmental conservation. The federal government determines recognition through a stringent process overseen by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIA. Tribes must provide extensive documentation, proving continuous political and cultural existence before European colonization. This requirement often presents challenges, particularly for tribes whose records were destroyed, lost, or never officially documented. Those who achieve recognition celebrate a hard-fought victory. However, for those left out, the process feels arbitrary and unjust. The disparity between recognized and unrecognized tribes fuels internal tensions. Some tribes, despite their deep historical roots, remain unrecognized due to bureaucratic barriers, lack of documentation, or political resistance. Others have been stripped of their recognition due to governmental reclassification, leaving them in legal limbo. This creates a painful divide. While recognized tribes benefit from sovereignty and federal aid, unrecognized ones struggle to maintain their identity and access essential services. For example, the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina has fought for federal recognition for decades. Despite their rich history and sizable population, they remain ineligible for the same benefits as other recognized tribes. The federal government's refusal to acknowledge them has led to economic hardships, limiting their access to healthcare and education. Their case exemplifies the frustration of countless tribes facing similar roadblocks. Tensions also arise between recognized and unrecognized tribes, as competition for federal funding becomes a source of friction. Recognized tribes sometimes oppose new recognition efforts, fearing it will dilute existing resources. In some cases, rivalries have emerged between neighboring indigenous groups, each asserting their legitimacy while questioning the validity of others. The recognition process, rather than fostering unity, often fuels division and suspicion. Beyond the legal and economic aspects, the emotional toll of non-recognition is profound. For many indigenous people, being denied recognition is akin to having their identity erased. Elders who have spent their lives preserving oral histories and traditions feel betrayed when their tribe's legitimacy is questioned. Younger generations, caught between ancestral heritage and governmental rejection, struggle with self-identity and cultural belonging. One poignant example is the plight of the Wekma Ohlone tribe of California. Despite clear historical ties to the region, they remain unrecognized by the federal government. For tribe members, this lack of recognition translates to a struggle to keep their language, ceremonies, and traditions alive without official support. The absence of acknowledgement from the government can feel like a denial of their ancestors' existence and contributions to American history. These struggles manifest in personal stories of loss and resilience. An elder of an unrecognized tribe may recall stories of their grandparents negotiating treaties or resisting forced relocation, only to see their people written out of history. A young activist may dedicate their life to fighting for recognition, driven by the pain of exclusion and the desire to reclaim their heritage. These individual experiences highlight the deeply personal impact of recognition, or lack thereof, in response to these injustices. Indigenous activism has surged. Tribal leaders, legal experts, and grassroots movements have mobilized to demand recognition for unacknowledged tribes. Lawsuits, petitions, and advocacy campaigns have placed increasing pressure on the federal government to reform the recognition process. Social media has also played a crucial role, giving tribes a platform to share their stories and garner public support. Activists argue that the current recognition system is outdated and discriminatory, favoring tribes with existing political influence while marginalizing others. They call for a more inclusive and transparent process, one that considers historical injustices and the complexities of tribal documentation. Some advocate for congressional intervention, urging lawmakers to pass legislation recognizing historically overlooked tribes. Despite these efforts, change remains slow. The federal government's reluctance to expand recognition stems from political and economic concerns, as granting new tribes recognition entails financial commitments. However, indigenous activists persist, driven by the belief that justice delayed should not mean justice denied. Addressing the divisions created by federal recognition requires a multifaceted approach. Firstly, the recognition process must be reformed to be more inclusive, considering the historical erasure and displacement many tribes have endured. Secondly, recognized tribes and unrecognized ones must find common ground, working together to advocate for Indigenous rights as a whole rather than competing for limited resources. Some successful collaborations offer hope. In certain regions, recognized and unrecognized tribes have formed coalitions to support one another's recognition bids, leveraging their collective political influence. These alliances demonstrate that unity, rather than division, can strengthen Indigenous sovereignty. Additionally, public awareness and education play a critical role. The broader American society must recognize the significance of tribal recognition and its impact on Indigenous communities. Schools, media, and policymakers should amplify Indigenous voices, ensuring that the history and struggles of unrecognized tribes are acknowledged and addressed. Federal recognition is a paradox. It empowers some tribes while disenfranchising others. While it grants legal and political benefits, it also exacerbates divisions within Indigenous communities. The fight for recognition is not merely a bureaucratic battle. It is a deeply emotional and cultural struggle, tied to the very identity of Indigenous peoples. The solution lies in reimagining the recognition process, fostering unity among tribes, and amplifying Indigenous voices in national discussions. Recognition should not be a privilege granted to a select few, but a right extended to all tribes with legitimate historical claims. Only then can the wounds of division begin to heal, allowing Indigenous communities to thrive together rather than remain fractured by government policies. The path to justice is long and fraught with challenges, but as history has shown, the resilience of Indigenous people is unwavering. Their fight for recognition is not just about legal status, it is about honoring their ancestors, preserving their cultures, and securing a future where no tribe is left behind. The journey to federal recognition is more than just a bureaucratic process. It is a fight for identity, sovereignty, and justice. For many Native American tribes, recognition is not just about financial support or legal status. It is about reclaiming their rightful place in history, preserving their culture, and securing a future for the next generations. Yet the struggle for recognition also reveals deep injustices. Some tribes, despite their rich heritage, remain unacknowledged, highlighting the flaws in the system. This reminds us that history is not just something we read about. It is something that continues to shape lives today. The deeper lesson here is one of resilience. Native American tribes have withstood centuries of hardship, yet they continue to fight for their rights, their stories, and their survival. Their strength is a testament to the enduring power of identity, heritage, and unity. Now it's your turn to be part of the story. If this video opened your eyes to the challenges and triumphs of Native American tribes, don't let the conversation end here. Like this video, drop a comment sharing your thoughts, and hit that subscribe button to explore more untold histories together. And most importantly, share this video to raise awareness because history deserves to be heard, and every voice makes a difference.